I think a lot of artists end up not only not being the CEOs of their own company, they end up not even working at their own company. They end up being the product.
Welcome back to the Slow Hunch. On this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Clyde Lawrence to the show. He is, along with his sister Gracie, the co-founder of the band Lawrence. They've been around for over a decade and have built a really incredible catalog of music and content, and have built a really interesting business around being musicians that's really creative and diverse and independent spirited. We're going to talk not just about the creation of music, but the creation of business around music.
I was hoping that AI would be helping me do my dishes so that I could make my art, not helping me make my art so I had more time to do my dishes. And I feel like there's a little bit of that with like how AI is like impacting the music industry. It's like, how about we let artists make their fucking music and let's let AI like route your tour.
We filmed this in my apartment in New York, and right after we finished, Clyde headed straight up to Broadway, where he and his sister are starring in a Broadway show that they helped create, which is just another example of the kind of incredible stuff that they're up to. Hope you enjoy the conversation with Clyde. It was so much fun. Here we go. You and I have talked a little bit about not the theory of music, but the business of music. And that's also a complicated topic that it's hard to understand unless you're in it. And I think of you and Lawrence as a really interesting band because you have a genuine presence. You play live a lot. You've done some really interesting things on the business side. Like, I think you're trying to come at the business with new eyes in a way that feels like it's works for you, works for your fans. And, that's not an easy thing to kind of pull off or to even try to navigate versus just playing the game
Totally.
on the field. Anyway, so maybe first just introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
I'm Clyde Lawrence. Me and my sister Gracie are the band leaders of a band called Lawrence, which is our last name. I'm currently super over-indexed on Lawrence merch. I'm accidentally wearing Lawrence sweatpants and a Lawrence hat, all of which you can find on our website. And the band is not only composed of me and Gracie, but also of 6 of our best friends that we have been playing music with, the 8 of us together, for over 10 years now. So I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot of interesting successes and challenges that we've had. But one of the coolest things is that this group of 8 of us has remained intact for over, I think, 11 years now. We tour all over the world. We release music, and probably notably for this conversation, we are way more independent and DIY than I would argue pretty much any band of our level of development. Almost 99.999% of bands that are at the level that we're at have a way more robust infrastructure and have way more of the equity of everything they're doing farmed out to and owned by other major companies in a way that we don't.
That's an incredible statement. And so we'll go back and figure out how you got to hear from there. So up front, what does it mean to be 99% more independent than anybody else at your stage? What kind of stuff is that?
So I mean, one really obvious example is most artists are on a record label.
Yep.
Record deals. I mean, I know that probably you and your listener base will be like more able to digest me throwing numbers at them than like when I'm on a music podcast. Most record deals can be anywhere from the record label taking anywhere from like 30 to very frequently like 80 to 85% of the equity, not in the whole company of the band, but in the particular recording project that they're investing in. So we don't have something like that. We have a really awesome deal with this producer named John Bellion, who's an amazing guy that is a creative partner to us and has become almost like a extended family member and advisor, and just an overall person who we've struck a deal with where he does in a way that's a little different than just a producer would. He does have some equity in the recording side, but vastly less than like a traditional label would. And what he's providing for us in return is involvement in helping work on the music. And, you know, he's a call away if we ever have business or strategic questions, and he's a valued member of the team, but there's no proper label infrastructure of any kind. We're doing all of that ourselves. So that's one of
For those who don't know what a record label even does, like what are the things
increasingly no one knows what a record label does. But theoretically, a record label is in charge of providing you, first of all, like all of the money to make your
studio time,
travel, producers,
Yep.
travel, literally everything that goes into making and marketing an album.
Yep.
They also would be in charge of managing all of the delivery dates and the timelines, and just project managing the entire thing from soup to nuts. Figuring out the marketing strategy, coordinating music video shoots, content, all of the above, distributing that music. So like putting it up in all the places that it needs to be put up in. And just kind of like being the company that is handling all of those things. We do all that ourselves, but then there's also a lot of other things that a lot of, labels will often get involved in merch, or have partnered merch companies that will help you develop and manage and inventory your entire merch operation. We do all of that ourselves in-house. We don't literally print the merch ourselves. Like we're not,
but lots of people
shirts
run. It's easy to
but like we have
sweatpants made, right?
Exactly. So like, but like everything from everything is like super internal in that sense. And then really a big one is on the touring side, which, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this know, is where most of the business is. Like at this point, it used to be that you would go on tour to market your music,
right, and sell albums or tapes.
Now, more or less, I mean, I'm proud to say that all of our albums do turn a profit over time. Like, they've
just alone on the digital distribution side.
Yeah, like just on the money that Spotify generates, because we keep nearly 100% of it, which most artists don't. Um, you know, Typically maybe over a 2-year period, we'll recoup all of the money that we spent on the album, and then after that, it's passive income. But it's still cents on the dollar compared to, by and large, the music is a marketing tool to market the tours.
Yep. And that is generally true for today's music industry.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the vast majority. Now, are you going to get? There's certain artists where it's not their touring that brings them the money, but rather brand deals. Like you'll see an artist maybe blow up on TikTok, and they're really cool or really attractive or whatever it might be, and they actually can't, sell 100 tickets, let alone 10,000. So they can't really make much money on the road. But what they can do is get the visibility from their social media, that their main revenue driver is going to be then doing brand deals and sponsored posts. There's a couple different models,
right?
But yes, I would say most artists are certainly not making most of their money off of
the music is a foot in the door to open up a different line of business for most artists today.
Yeah, there's certainly some that I know that make really good money on streaming, but it's few and far between. Touring can be a really good business. Certainly the revenues can be really high, but the costs can also be tremendously high. And that is like the biggest way in which I feel that we are different from almost any other band our size, is that we do so many of the jobs that traditionally would be farmed out to other people on the road ourselves.
And I know you've talked a lot in the past about some of the challenges of the structure of the performance side of the industry, which we'll get to, but just to focus on like, what does it mean to be an independent artist on the tour side today? Like, many venues are owned by Ticketmaster and ticketed through Live Nation, ticketed through Ticketmaster. Does that mean if you're independent, you have to stay away from those venues?
No. So yeah, independent is a weird word in the music industry. An independent band historically has just meant a band that isn't on a record label.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, actually, some bands that are even on independent record labels would say they're independent. I think at one point it may not be on a major
record.
So we are not on really a record label of any kind other than this deal that we have with John. But like we have a booking agent who helps book our concerts, but even that process we are way more hands-on with.
I see.
And then when we are on the road, um, really it's just that like the amount of touring crew we have and the amount of major strategic and creative decisions about how our tours run and budgeted
Yep.
notably
Uh-huh.
is way more done in-house than other people. So it doesn't restrict us from any venues. Like we do shows with Live Nation, we do shows with AEG. We have done, you know, something that some artists do, which we have not done, is like sign a long-term multi-year deal with a company like Live Nation.
An exclusive or
An
not.
yeah, exactly. That is something that some people do. We haven't done that, although we have signed like multi show deals with company like Live Nation. Like
Yeah.
we'll say like we're doing this tour, you know, if you can give us a deal worthwhile, we will do most or almost all of the tour with your venues. You know, we have the flexibility to do that however we want.
It sounds like to me that sort of going independent sort of had two components. One is like how much are you going to do yourself
Yeah.
versus farm out to a label or somewhere else, and then how much will you fund yourself?
Yeah.
And some of these cost actual money.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a story of a new artist today. What would it take to go independent? Right.
Yeah, and that's why
I have the money.
that's why I mean, I think that the good thing is that you can do things on a really small scale. Like when we were starting, it's not like we were like spending tons of money from the get-go. Like our first album costs some amount of money, but not a lot. Um, and like going on tour, we were literally all 8 of us in a van, sleeping in the van. And like, eating fast food most nights. Like we were trying to make it that the tour, we weren't making money, but trying to make it that the tour was at least like breaking even or something, which is hard to do when you're starting out. So like the idea of us now having this like capital engine where we're able to like spend, make really like meaningful investments in ourselves is like something that has scaled up naturally over time. It's not like we started our project being like, let's sink it all in this.
Well, and I think that's an important part of the story for folks who are listening, who are thinking about like, what's replicable, here, right? And it's mostly about sweat equity and hustle and DIY mentality.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely important to acknowledge that, like, I think some people think that the mark of like privilege is the ability to like have the connections to just like sign some huge record label on day one. And like, I would argue that the biggest privilege is to like have at least the small amount that it needs to record that first album yourself and control it.
Yep.
Because I think that one of the biggest ways that the industry preys on people is preying on artists' need for a small amount of money now.
Right, to do that very, very first.
Yeah, like even like a lot of people wouldn't be able to invest a few $1,000 in putting together that first project and a video for it. Like, so it's like, then you get a company that's like, we're going to give you that for 80% of your project. And like that,
now we kind of own you forever.
yeah. And that's like really how it works. So like, we absolutely, like, I wouldn't want people to misunderstand and think that we were like investing like hundreds of thousands of dollars in ourselves, but absolutely the privilege for us in the band to be able to scrounge together the initial investment to make that first project is absolutely a privilege.
Well, so let's go back then, and then we'll work our way back to the present day. So there's the story of the band. I'm curious, like maybe that's the right place to start. I'm also curious if you and your sister were thinking about the business of music like long before that. Like when did you start thinking about how you wanted to be a musician, not on the music side, but on the operating side?
It's honestly like the only thing I've ever really like wanted to do. Like from the time that I was a little kid, music was like my number one thing that I was interested in, constantly obsessed with it, playing music at home, Gracie singing. And it was just kind of like literally, I don't remember a time when music wasn't a core part of my
Wow.
life. I literally like, and even understanding of music, understanding chords and how they string together is as second nature to me as like my earliest memories of understanding how to construct sentences in
Wow.
English.
And so this is 3 years old or
Yeah.
younger? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say with no exaggeration, I am meaningfully better at a lot of things than I was when I was a little kid. I'm not like that much better at understanding and playing piano than I was when I was 5 or 6 years
Holy cow.
old.
Wow.
So I was really lucky in that respect that it just, that aspect of it came relatively naturally to me. Um,
I must interrupt for a second and say, we saw you play last year, and I was with a friend of mine who introduced me to your music originally. He's my daughter's piano teacher. His name's Dan Hogan,
oh, nice, right?
and he's been teaching her piano since she was 4, and he's been over our house every week, for 10 years. She's 14 now, and so he's like a part of our family. And the I re- and watching her learn and watching them play music together has been this amazing gift for us. But I'll never forget what he said after we were like a couple feet away from you watching you play one night. He texted me the next morning. He's like, man, that was something else. I've never seen anybody's fingers move over the keys like yours.
That's awesome.
And
There's definitely a lot of people who can move their fingers with the keys much better than me.
well, you
But
got it, and it's really
that's awesome to
and
hear.
back to what we were talking about before. It's like you giving it as a gift to people again and again. It's
Well,
really
thank you.
that's really
I
wonderful.
appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, certainly a desire to play music was a desire that I had to the strongest degree before I even really understood the need to distinguish between that being a professional desire or otherwise.
Right. It was just
Um,
this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and
Obviously.
probably like as soon as I understood that people did have jobs, I understood that this is what I would love to be my job, probably. Um, but there's a million steps
Sure.
between wanting that and making it a reality. Um, Gracie was in a similar boat, so we kind of shared that dream from the beginning. Um, we grew up around our parents, both work in the arts, though neither of them in music.
Okay.
Music is its own unique beast, but it was certainly like our dad's a filmmaker, and it was always cool to see him on set, the way that he led a group of people and kind of inspired like a common
Yeah.
goal towards making something.
Yeah, and that's like what's interesting about that is it's leading a team. It's doing a project, right, that blends these ideas of like art and also kind of teamwork, which is part of like
Yeah,
business, and
exactly.
you can run a team to make a creative thing.
Exactly. And like seeing the way that he dealt with people that he agreed with, seeing the way he dealt with people he disagreed with. Um, all those things are really valuable things that I think we really benefited from. And and then, I think that just like there's a real culture of like storytelling in our home, like whether it be us playing a song to our parents that we wrote or or our dad, telling us an idea for a movie that he had, like everyone was fair game to be like, here's what I think. So I think like,
I
although there was never really like a specific our parents could not have been more the opposite of stage parents in terms of like, it wasn't like, here's what you're going to do next. Here's how you're going to make it, blah, 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 blah. It was like that was not the vibe at all. But what definitely was the vibe was just like a feeling of empowerment that like, we are all engaging these conversations together about what makes something good or entertaining or compelling or
Well, and
connective.
probably gives you confidence at an early age that like you can have an opinion, you can kind of make something, you can
Yeah.
dare to kind of go with an idea
Yeah,
and
100%.
follow it. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly a huge thing. The idea that this was like a worthwhile way to spend your time and energy was like making this kind of stuff was definitely like not questioned in my home. So that was cool. And then but there's still the question of like what does it look like to actually get that off the ground?
And when did that start? Like, when was the idea, like, maybe we'll actually kind of do this in some real way?
There
Maybe.
wasn't like a on switch, off switch moment of like, we are gonna try to do this.
Uh-huh.
I think it was like me and Gracie started performing, at school, at events, and people liked it, and then it's like, and then all of a sudden, like anytime they needed music for something, like I would do the music, it was just like,
Yep.
I became like, it became a big part of my identity that I was
Yep.
doing a lot of music stuff and that it was just like my core thing that I do. Um, and then in college, um, formed the band that now exists as Lawrence. We all went to school together at
Yep.
Brown and like we, for the most part, and we just started playing shows like every weekend and it became really popular. I mean, I think like it became quite a popular thing on campus to come see our, little basement parties. And so that became really
Right.
fun.
And also, I imagine that didn't really feel like a business endeavor as much as like
I think that like we
something
were
else.
trying to make it as legit as possible. We
Okay.
weren't making any money off of it, certainly. But in terms of like fan acquisition,
Yep. Yep. Okay.
like I think like I think that certainly like the idea of like we're playing this show tonight, we want it to be popular on campus and like a certain sense of competition of like, oh, the lacrosse team's throwing a party, but we are playing a basement party on the other side of campus. Like,
Which is going to be the bigger draw.
yeah, so I guess that there's a
Yeah.
business element to that, except no one was making any money doing any of it. But like, you know, um, and I think like we really were certainly it helped us develop our strategic muscle about growing
Right.
our footprint
Yep.
and like gaining people's buy-in. And I think that that college period was immensely important and still such a huge part of our spirit because like what we didn't realize we were doing, and then at some point did realize what we were doing, was like we were creating these like really core memories for this set of people that were all kind of sequestered in this really specific area that we're then about to like
Right.
disperse around
Interesting.
the country and world and then become like our own little ambassadors. Like
Yeah.
imagine how unique of an opportunity that is for any company of any kind.
Right.
Like when I talk to people that are like trying to make it in music, but this probably applies to other things too. And they're like, oh, I'm just trying to make it through college so I can really get started. I'm like, when are you ever gonna have a set of people that are like all living together in their own little weird bizarro culture where like you can kind of make a real
Yeah. It's a captive audience.
it's a
By
captive
definition.
audience that are all like feasting for ways to like celebrate their campus culture and like have it become a thing for them. And so then, yeah, it really worked out in that way where we never really left Providence, Rhode Island. But then by the time we graduated, we had a couple dozen people in many major cities that were like not only excited to come see us when we did finally come through for the first time, but excited to tell everyone that they knew this is the cool thing to do. And I think that another really important thing was like realizing the switch that happens from a marketing standpoint from when it gets to be like you inviting your friend to the first show
Yep.
and having it be like they're doing you a favor by coming to the show and like maybe doing you the super favor of like bringing a friend to then like and I know that feeling of being like we have no fans in Denver, please come and bring someone. It's going to be embarrassing to it then like the switch flipping to it being like they are like
Hey, are there any seats?
yeah,
can I
or
get
like
a ticket?
yeah, and just like them having the confidence of being like this thing that I'm about to seem so cool to my friends because I'm about to turn them on to this thing that I have a connection to, that I have a like feeling a sense of ownership of. And like we really could feel that switch in each city at its own time. What was funny is it's like it moved at different paces in different
For
places.
sure. And it was probably physically proximate. Like I
Yeah.
imagine it grew.
Exactly. That like there were points where like in San Francisco, if we played a show, I wouldn't need to ask a single person in my network to come. It was like they wanted to come and bring their friends. I'm using San Francisco as an example, but same goes for Chicago and Boston and
Right. The
LA and
hubs, the big
a
hub
number
cities.
of cities. But then I remember like still when we were selling like 1,000 tickets there, we were literally like selling like 15 tickets in like Houston, which is also a major city, but just less the place that we
Yep.
impacted.
Yep.
And it was like, and it was funny, honestly.
Well, and to bring that back to the like, what does it mean to be independent? And I think there's this like DIY organic piece of it. And it sounds like the start of the band was like super DIY and organic.
Super.
And you're just like, we're doing this and we're still doing this and let's keep doing this and let's do it more. Was there during that time, did you all record albums and did you have the inclination to self-fund them and take them independent off label back then, or did that idea come in later?
Um, I don't think that there was ever an explicit desire to like be independent for the sake
Yep.
of being independent.
Yep.
We're not like, it's not like we have this like independent streak that's like we must be independent at all costs. I think that the North Star goals here were have control over what we're making
Yep.
so we can make sure that we're proud of it. And just like have our business run in a way that makes sense to us. It seems correct. Frankly, like if anything, our independence is a reaction to the realization that doing things the industry standard way, like yields often like a really bad product and organizational culture.
Yep.
Like if we had entered into the industry and some label was like, here's how a label deal works and here's what, da, 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 and it was like all like exactly what we would have wanted, then might have been like, great. And we did actually sign a label deal but never made any music on it. So we made our first album. So yeah, to go back, we were in college, we're playing these shows. I had recorded a little EP of some of the music, but it was kind of even before we started playing the shows. Once we started playing the shows, we were building up material, which would end up becoming our first album.
Okay.
And then after we graduated, I'd say the most official anything that happened is I wrote an email, which I actually recently found. I wrote an email to everyone in the band being like, me and Gracie, when we were graduating, me and Gracie are like officially like going to continue doing this, like attempting to have this be our career. And that would mean everything from like actually trying to record a proper album and actually trying to like do some semblance of a tour. We don't even know what that means yet, but like figuring that out. Who's in? What are your considerations? Some of them, different people would need to have different levels of jobs for different periods of time. Some people are like, I could do this for 6 months, but then I need a job. Some people are like, I need a part-time job from day one, but like everyone has their different things. Oh, I can live on my friend's couch, whatever it is. So we literally sent that email out and each person had their own different response, but pretty much everyone's response was like, I'm in.
Incredible.
With any number of possible caveats and things. So that was kind of like the most official thing that ever got said. And then it's been that same group ever since. We then were like, okay, we're going to make an album. We met with a couple producers that had become interested in us just from the buzz we were already getting from college.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to them about what it looked like to make an album, leaned on them, signed with a manager, who was going to kind of help us figure some of this out. And that was kind of, we then like within those first 6 months out of college, recorded that first album, figured out how to budget it in a way that would work for us between giving different people pieces of it rather than upfront money and whatever it was.
Yep.
The creative people involved, not
the band members. I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the band members. Yeah. And, outside producers and people
Right.
we were working with who we maybe weren't able to pay their full rates.
Yep.
And scrounge that together and then basically tried to release that and started touring it, which for us at the time meant literally playing tiny venues. So it was kind of like and then it just really organically snowballed from there. We picked up a booking agent and a lawyer, and that was kind of it.
And so,
and the label piece was
right.
after that, off the relative success of that first album, which was relatively successful for a debut album from a totally independent band. A major label, Warner Brothers, we did, they reached out to us, offered us a deal.
Okay.
I'd be totally honest, I don't remember how much I've actually told this story publicly. We went back and forth on it quite a bit, and we had a lot of hesitations and already had a lot of instincts in the 6 to 8 months that we had in the industry that the way that we were doing it felt right. But the deal felt low stakes enough that it felt worth giving a try.
Yep.
So we signed it. I would say it pretty immediately was not the right move for us.
How did you know?
Just no one was mean or anything, but just like things were not moving at the pace that we wanted them to. And frankly, I was just not inspired by like anything. I wasn't feeling like, if I was to put it so bluntly, I wasn't really feeling like anyone was doing anything that we couldn't have done ourselves.
Yeah, interesting.
And like it was just putting roadblocks in place for us to just continue doing things that we were doing ourselves. So we luckily, because not everyone's able to do this, we managed to just like kind of get out of the deal.
Incredible.
And so we never literally benefited or drew back from that deal.
Yep. You basically figured out it wasn't a fit.
Or super early
enough
and we
to-
never recorded or released a single song on the deal.
Right.
Because we signed with them after the first album with the intention of making the next album.
Yep.
But then by the time we even started the next album, we had already gone our separate ways.
That's really interesting because it sounds like the sort of independent pathway to the first album, like the start of the band, the beginning of playing the first album was almost accidental. Like it wasn't a master plan to stay that way, but during that time you sort of got a feel for how you like to operate, basically.
Yeah.
Which is, it sounds like more about having control over how you maneuver than anything else.
And realizing that we had an ability and perhaps even a knack for setting up our organization in a really efficient way.
Interesting.
Which I think is a reason why I'm very hesitant to give people the advice in the music industry to like do what we did. I think there's lessons you can take from what we've done, which is to like not be afraid to do things that you think you could do well yourself.
Yep.
But like, I don't think that everyone should assume that they'd be good at the exact same things that we are. The same way that like we have a lawyer, because none of us is a lawyer. If someone in the band was qualified to be a lawyer, then maybe we'd be our own lawyer, but we have a great lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, but there are things that most other bands have that we've become qualified to do ourselves.
What would be some examples of things that even dating back to then, you felt like you guys just could do on your own that were sort of special and unique, like, and why?
I mean, a great example is like on tour, like not me, but people in the band are our tour manager and production manager. That like hardly ever happens, especially as a band scales. Certainly, I've never heard of a band of our size being their own tour manager or production manager for the most part. That's like, those are really big jobs. And that extends to other things that we do on the road. VIP coordination, merch management. Gracie handles all of our social media, soup to nuts.
Wow.
She wants to do it for the same reasons. I don't think it's like, I think it's because she feels like it's the greatest way to ensure that it's going to be done in a way that she's proud of.
Yep.
I think like she enjoys it, but I think if she found someone that was literally going to do it exactly how she perfectly imagined, she'd probably be down for someone else to do it. But like, she's like, this is how it's going to get done in the way that, and I really care about it being done well.
Yep.
And so she does all of it. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I do all the band's accounting and budgeting.
Amazing.
I realized that I didn't find it that hard and that I found it to be really illuminating, and just that is a place where someone who's not totally invested can so make things go well.
Oh, totally.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
If someone like, if the person who's deciding how to spend money Or actually, I'm not even the one deciding how to spend money because I farm out a lot of those decisions to the other people in the band within their own department. So like Jordan, our tour manager, who's in the band, he's really going to be the one to decide like what tour bus we rent.
Sure. Yep.
And that will have a financial consideration. But even me being the one to make sure that that's all getting added up. And frankly, like, and this might come as a surprise to people in your industry, like the job of making sure we are paid the correct amount is a full-time job, full stop. Like more than a full-time. It's such a full-time job that I feel relatively confident that most other artists are not being paid.
Oh man, that's awful.
I feel like incredibly confident about that. And that's not because, insert ways that this could be taken out of context when I'm saying that I'm implying that Live Nation's, intentionally, it's none of that. I think it's a mix of a variety of things, but I think that like making sure that we are being paid the amount that the amount that the deal suggests we should, which isn't always as simple as a literal number.
Sure.
Although even if it is a literal number, sometimes chasing down that money is a full-time job. But very often it's not a strict number where you need to follow the deal flow of, oh, it's this percentage after this, plus this, minus that. That's a thing that someone that has skin in the game should be doing.
Sounds like you guys just have an incredible amount of interest and ability to do more than just make the music. And I don't know if that's just good luck or, you're just really hands-on with all the process, or you just really care about things getting done a certain way. But it seems like
I think different people have different drives for it.
Yep.
Within the band. I think that some people, and all of these things are related. I think for some people, they want to be able to support themselves financially, which is hard to do in an 8-piece band. And so doing a little extra work, just like we just
right. If I could get paid to do that.
We save so much money by doing everything ourselves. So on the most basic level, we save so much money by doing things that other people do. Now, not only do we save money because we aren't giving other people a piece of the pie, we also just make more money because our operation runs more efficiently. So it's actually the profits are more.
Right. Earning more and keeping more.
Earning more. Yeah. The pie's bigger and we all have a bigger piece.
What would be of the efficiency driving to like earning better as a band?
I think like tour budgeting is a great example. We handle the decisions over all of how our touring works ourselves. And so I'll give you an example. Like I said, the tour bus thing, right?
Yep.
Like when we know we're going on tour, our tour manager immediately goes out, tries to find a quote for the best quote for a suitable tour bus for that period of time. Like his bottom line is personally affected by getting the best deal on a tour bus. His lifestyle is also personally affected by getting a suitable tour bus. Most bands, as a base layer, and I have a couple things to say about how this usually goes wrong, but that's a pretty good system.
Okay.
Of immediately having someone who cares both about living on a comfortable tour bus and making the most money possible, being the one that decides what your tour bus is going to be and tries to lock out. A lot of other bands, the person picking what the tour bus is either might not actually be living on the tour bus.
Sure, that's a real conflict of interest. Yes.
They might not be having their compensation for the tour be in any way affected by the bottom line of the tour.
Yep.
Another misalignment of incentives. In many cases, it might be both of those things. It might be someone whose pay is not affected by the cost of the tour bus and also isn't going to be
right. So that person's going to get you an expensive, uncomfortable bus.
Yeah, or whatever.
The easiest for them.
They're going to get whatever bus is easiest to find.
Right.
What I will say is even another layer to all of that is that a lot of artists wouldn't even have the person whose job it is to get the tour bus on the payroll until so close to the tour that the options of tour buses left are going to be at a premium price and maybe not the best options. Right. Because you're not going to bring on someone to start working on the logistics for the tour until a month out.
Right. And if they're an outside person, why would you pay them 8 months in advance?
Yeah, like on a retainer or
Right.
whatever it is. Now, I'm not saying that every artist has that situation, but that's a common point of complaint that I'm aware of. And I happen to know that like we just consistently get better deals on a lot of these things, not just because of relationships, which we do have, not just because we've built up a relationship over time with certain companies where
Sure.
we have like, you know, that kind of family business energy,
Yep.
but also because of just like literally having someone that immediately the second we book a tour is like, I want to try to lock in a great boss for us.
No doubt.
So there's a million examples of that.
Right.
So that's like one reason why you could be motivated to do yourself, because it's going to get done in a more financially efficient way and you're going to have more peace of mind. Another reason is because some people in the band have some degree of a chip on their shoulder about proving that, whether it be musicians in general, or at least that particular musician isn't like only just like a person that knows how to
Of
play
like a musician. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I think that people take pride
Yeah,
in
love
some
that.
degree of that.
Yep.
I think that like maybe there is a piece of both of those things for me. And I think that for some people, it's just wanting things to be done really well. Like, you know, like just having the feeling of like, I just want this to be like done in the way that I understand it. I think for me, of course, I understand and relate to all those things. For me, it really does come back to loving getting to make the music that I make, that I want to make. It's not that I always loved all the music I make, but I love having the ability to have all the control over the music that I make, whether it ends up good or not. And like, I live in such fear, like I get such a pit in my stomach when I think about like needing to like get someone else's approval, needing to like finish a song and then send it to someone else, not in the way I often send things to people of like, what do you think?
Right.
But like sending it, hoping that they're gonna like let me put it out without any changes.
God.
Like I would be not only so miserable, I would make them so miserable. I would be like their worst nightmare. Like and so like for me, that's the North Star. Continuing to get to do that,
Yeah.
continuing to have the business grow in a way that allows us to do that on a bigger and bigger scale. I love that like now when we get to make the music, I loved it when we got to make the music we want to make and hope that anyone would listen to it. It's also really fun now that we continue to get to make the music that we want to make and know that millions of people are going to listen to it. But like, that's what drives me, is just wanting to maintain, not because I'm a control freak, or maybe I am, but because I just like love making those decisions
Well,
and
you said something really important there, which is, I think for many people, they think about the process of making it as an artist as, I make a thing and then I send it to somebody to say, pretty please,
yeah,
can you please let this be real?
yeah,
Whether that's music or writing or art or whatever. And that's like a pretty shitty feeling, right? And
totally.
versus when you take an independent approach, you can just make it and put it out there and let it be.
I think that music is music right now is uniquely, for all of the ways that the music industry is the fucking worst. Like that is something that is easier to like
Yes.
if you're an actor, you can do some things yourself, but still it's pretty hard to make it as an actor without needing to audition for things and get people to say yes. If you are a songwriter for artists,
Right.
you need to get them to want to record your song. If you're even a filmmaker, it's getting easier, but it's still really expensive to make films. So like mostly you still need to raise an amount of money that it would be very hard for you to fund yourself to legitimately make a movie. Now, I'm a huge proponent of like, if you are a filmmaker, like seeing what the best version of if you have a great idea for a movie and you're not getting the yeses from the studios you need to get that couple $1 million to make it, like I'm a huge proponent of like going out with your friends that similarly believe in it, being like, let's all split whatever this is and like, let's all just make it in the most cheap way we can. And even if it turns out to be a short or it turns out to be really lo-fi or we reimagine what it is, like I'm a big believer in like, in this philosophy, but I'm very acknowledging that like music is well suited to that because these days you can literally make music for $0.
Yeah, creation is available if you have the skills. The
Yeah.
tools are widely available, and distribution is
Free now.
is basically free.
Yeah.
And you still have to work to make something good and to promote it, and you have to do a lot of hustle, and you have to get lucky. There's some luck involved or whatever, but nobody's literally gatekeeping you.
Nobody's gatekeeping you to like literally anyone can make music and put it out on the internet. What happens next is the question, but that as like the first layer is not always the case for actors or filmmakers or other kinds of creatives. So I'm aware of that.
What's interesting about like the moment in the story, right, of like you guys kind of, beginning to make it as a band and get out there. I feel like there's a moment, and also learning all the things that you can control in the production and distribution and making of your art and your product. At a certain point, you launch out into kind of the industry in a bigger way. And I know you've written about a fair bit about some of the structural challenges in the music industry. You testified in front of the Senate a couple of years ago. You wrote a New York Times op-ed talking about some sort of structural problems with ticketing and venues and things like that.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need to get into anything about that, but at a certain point, no matter who you are, you get out there and you're in the music business.
Yeah.
And you're facing kind of, I don't know, the structural challenges that are in the business. And so did that like hit you in the face at a certain point, or like what was it like as you started to kind of understand those things more and experience them more?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have like a lot of those moments. I mean, we literally early in our career had a company that we used like a third party company that we used to sell a bunch of vinyl to our fans. They did like bespoke vinyl campaigns to your fans.
If I had my shit together, this is the moment in the conversation where I reach back and pull out a
I
Lawrence
love that.
album.
Well, you're about to learn about how if you had done it through this company, you wouldn't have received it. And they literally, a bunch of our fans bought vinyl through them, and then they went bankrupt, and we never got the money. So like
Ouch.
literally, within the first year of our career, we had literally like money theoretically sitting in an online account, like the way that you could go on your online banking and see a number in an account, and then just get trolled overnight that money doesn't exist, which like kind of like gave us an overnight distrust in like literally everything. Because it was like not an insignificant amount of money. At the time, it would have like basically funded our album.
Oh my God, wow.
So that sucked. There were like individual things like that were kind of sucked. But I think that like the biggest thing in the area where I consider myself like, the op-ed in the Senate testimony, everything you're talking about is mostly in regards to the live music space.
Yep.
And I think, we just started seeing, because me and Jordan, him as the tour manager, me as the tour accountant, were actually the ones doing the nightly settlements, which most other bands would never even get the visibility into.
Interesting. Yep.
We were just doing that from the beginning and just like starting to see things that seemed weird. And I think that like we were just not afraid to ask questions for any number of reasons. But like we just were not afraid to just ask, whether it be people in our own team or people that we were settling with. Oh, so why is that number deducted, but not this number is deducted? And like really going in at first with like totally the humility of like, we're probably missing something.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Like we went in with the mindset of like, oh, what are we misunderstanding? And then like we really started to realize that like very few people had enough of a grasp on the sheet they were handing us to sign to even answer the question.
Wow.
It's like that's what we realized was just like the widespread, I don't know if incompetence is the right word, but like just the widespread passing this sheet that you got from him to him to him to her.
So sloppiness.
Sloppiness and people not understanding the economics of the thing that they think.
And it sounds like you're saying that you're not, you know, viewing most of that as sort of nefarious trickery.
I think that there are some things that are nefarious, but I think that not all things are nefarious.
Yeah.
And I think that even the things that are nefarious, it's not the person that we're dealing with that night who doesn't exactly understand
Yeah.
the deal that Remy has to sign that
Yep.
might have done the nefarious widespread thing that is now like kind of this is an instance of.
Yes.
But so like we started seeing that one, a lot of people didn't have answers to our questions in a coherent way.
Right.
And when they did, like it painted a consistent picture of like a set of industry standards that seemed really out of whack in terms of how some of these deals were structured. Such as like the amount of the venue's costs that are deducted from the show's profit or the show's revenue before you do a profit split compared with any of the artists. So like, you know, to really talk about it, I would need to like talk through an example of how deal flow works, which I'm happy to do if that's helpful. But like, yeah, basically just ways in which there's an imbalance and a misalignment in incentives between
The example that I thought of that you mentioned to me before is like, say you have the venue that's owned by the ticketing company and then, you know, the people running the bar are also owned by them, right? So you'll have this thing. And then, you know, there's a revenue line, but then they deduct the bar line, and then maybe they deduct the movers are also hired by the same people. And then, so maybe the movers inflate their prices and maybe the bar inflates their prices. And so all of a sudden,
and everyone's cool with that except the artists.
Right. Because they're just basically taking up all the room between the top line and the bottom line.
Exactly.
And
And then the artist cut is a percentage of
the bottom line.
Right.
And,
So
and that's a particular problem if there's vertical integration or like business arrangements.
I think that like the idea of the way that like the like integration, the way that that plays into it was something that we frankly even got hip to a little bit later.
Yeah.
Like,
right. I see.
like that is a huge part of it that ended up being like the sexy part worth talking about in the New York Times and at the Senate. But like, but even if you take all of that out of it, there's still just like silliness that occurs of like, let's say that the bar people were negotiating completely in good faith.
Yep.
Like, still, why is the bartender a line item that's getting deducted from top line because it's one that you are responsible for paying for? But how come my tour van is not getting included as a cost between the top and bottom line? Like, even if everyone's acting in good faith, the question of which costs get included in the set of costs that are deducted between top line and bottom line, those were the things that we were getting kind of annoyed about in the early days. And then, yeah, once you add the cherry on top of like, oh, and a lot of these costs that are being deducted that we have no say over, you are actually like structurally incentivized with us to minimize those costs, but because of your business relationship with those other parties, you are perhaps incentivized to inflate those costs.
Exactly.
That's like a whole other layer that made our minds explode. So there's even another layer before you get to that.
Right. And even before that, there's this kind of this thing you would learn if once you start really paying attention that, you know, the venue isn't necessarily all that incentivized to reduce the costs.
Right.
Because you know, they're making maybe money on the tickets or other places.
There's all these other, that's the other thing. We're talking about top line and then costs and then bottom line. And the other thing you can realize that's insane is that top line is actually a bottom line of some other sheet that we're not even seeing.
Yeah.
There's actually top line from which there's all these things deducted in fees that the artist doesn't get a piece of. And then there's there's like a net gross amount that's getting presented to the artist as the top line. But actually a bunch of people have already eaten off the pie. And then these companies have the audacity to, at the bottom line, write what the promoter's making as like the amount that they're making or losing. As if it's like, let's say that the deal at the end of the day is 80% to the artist, 20% to the promoter of the bottom line.
Yep.
It'll be like, so the promoter made this amount and it's 20% of that. And it's like, whoa, you're not including the amount that you're that you are entangled with all these other companies that are making stuff,
Yep.
and the amount that
Right.
this and that, and the amount that's already being scraped off the top of things before I'm even seeing this top line number. So yeah, those kinds of things were starting to occur to us.
Well, what's interesting about all this, and it really connects with the idea of the slow hunch, because we started talking about how you guys sort of found your way towards being an indie and independent and DIY because you just kind of wanted things the way you wanted them,
Yeah.
right? And you wanted them to come out right, including being the band's accountant and like
Yeah.
whatever. And it's only because you did that that it led you to be able to sort of uncover
Totally.
these
I would have
financial
never,
aspects. Right?
I would have never been able to really like have the visibility into this. And like, it'd be one thing if once I discovered this, I then started talking to other people and felt like, oh, everyone gets this. Like
Interesting.
like everyone that is a tour manager or on the business side fully understands
Right.
the
They
ins
just
and
know
outs of
that's
this.
it. Everybody's
They know
to
this.
business.
They're
Yeah,
hip to
they know
this.
cold.
And like I slowly started to realize like a lot of people understand in some kind of broad, vague terms that like things are out of whack. But like actually I was like shocked by the small number of people that seemed to really have as good of a grasp on it as we did. And that was not like a like yes moment. I mean, it made me feel vindicated about our decisions to do it the way we've done it. But it made me be like, oh wow, like we are, because of the unique position we're in of being people that are invested in this
Yep.
and understanding it and da da da, like we are in a small group actually of people that have a full understanding of this. And that's where I ended up writing this piece and speaking that way because there weren't so many other people that were in the position I was in.
Yep. And so let's talk about like what you've seen since then.
Yeah.
Like, on that, because I'm very curious. I could imagine there's a lot more room to make progress
Yeah.
on the helping artists understand it better and
Yeah.
create give people the tools to
Yeah.
wrap their heads around it, as opposed to the like figuring out how to enact some sort of
Yeah.
structural change in the way the industry works.
Yeah.
But have you seen movement on both sides?
I think I've seen some movement on both sides. I think that like I would love for there to be more movement in a number of ways. I think that like the most singularly significant thing that came as a result of that is that Live Nation rolled out a program that they called On the Road Again
Okay.
shortly after all of this, and some subsequent conversations that we had with them about, to their credit, the Senate testimony that we spoke in was largely about these big antitrust things that were like, I think that they correctly identified that we had a lot of complaints about things that were like, that could be solved, at least in part, through just like try to solve them. You know what I mean? So they, I think, smartly reached out to us and was like, let's go over what these things are. And they subsequently rolled out a program called On the Road Again, which the single biggest line item of it was that they got rid of taking any cut of artist merch on revenues, which is like a millions and millions of dollars swing.
And so, and that was in the middle of the top line, bottom line stack, or that was a separate.
That's a separate thing that also just like is annoying. Because we don't get a cut of the bar sales, we don't get a cut of the parking sales, we don't get a cut of the concessions.
Right. So why should they get a cut of the merch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I think that like that was an interesting thing that just like changed things. What they also was a part, and that has remained the case. They don't take any merch for any venues that they own that are like under 3,500 cap, which I actually think once you get to a certain size, it's possibly fair because they are providing a lot of staff and infrastructural support.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about all of it, but I think it's a no-brainer that they shouldn't be getting a cut below a certain number where they're really not providing pretty much anything. So that was a big one. Another piece of it was that they started including more artists' costs as things that they're reimbursing.
Okay.
Like,
oh, interesting.
The way they did it was a little weird in my opinion, but it's financially ultimately equivalent to meeting our demand of feeling that the artist's own costs should be more represented between that top line and bottom line.
Yep. And these were things that were below the bottom line, like your tour bus
Yeah.
or whatever else.
Really what they did was they just started giving additional money to all artists. They started giving like a flat reimbursement fee to all artists that play their owned and operated venues.
Right. So it's not necessarily accounting for some specific thing, but it's a
Yeah, but it helps.
helps. Yep.
And yeah, and it's like kind of flat rate numbers in
Yep.
such a way that I actually think that for certain small artists is probably more
Maybe helps more.
costly.
Yep.
So that's cool. But and there's been some other things we talked about with them about like peripheral things of like ways that the venue's hospitality for the day can provide artists more lifestyle assurances that do have an effect on the artist's bottom line, because it could help artists not feel like they need to get hotel day rooted
I
through the
see.
day, or
Yep.
laundry services, or even just hiring extra people on their team to coordinate a lot of those
Yep.
logistics. Like if more stuff is set and forget at the venue, even though it's a lifestyle change first and foremost, that trickles down to the artist's economics. So there's some changes that we've seen, and I think we've seen like culturally some of those things trickle to other companies too. Um, I still think, and I think that there's like been an increase in artist awareness about certain like buzzwords. Like I think a lot of artists, certainly that I talk to, partially because they've done their homework on what we've talked about, are acutely aware that the number that they see on that top line
Yep.
is not the top line,
Yep. You got
and an
it.
understanding of where that's coming from. And even if it's like not changing anything, it's changing the tenor of the conversations that they're able to have. And it's allowing them to feel confident that if at the end of the night, the promoter says, well, look, we only made this measly number on the bottom of the sheet, like that artists can understand the context of that comment.
Yep.
Now there are cases where in a completely independent promoter and a completely independent venue, that may be what.
Sure. But at least now there's more kind of awareness of the setup and a
I'd
different way
like to
look
think
at
that the
stuff.
understanding from some subset of artists of these issues is slightly more nuanced, that they could then be doing some of the same things that we are doing. And I will say that I think that like we have found ways to make the deals make more sense for us.
So, by the way, that's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit, which is, so I like to do a part of the conversation on the Slow Hunch called the adjacent possible, which is, if you think about the Slow Hunch as ideas colliding and growing over time, that's one piece of it. And then another piece of it is at any given moment in time, only so much is possible given where the world is, where technology is. You can walk through the next door and then you got to walk through the next room to get to the next door. Right. And so if I'm curious to get your take on sort of where the world is today.
Where the next frontiers of
Yeah. And like I know you're pretty creative and wide ranging around the different ways that you think about making Lawrence or your music into a business, right?
Yeah.
You're playing on Broadway right now. You have a Patreon that I subscribe to. That's great. Like, I'm sure you've thought of kind of all the ways, like, what's your framework, or how do you think about like how you're trying to take the business now, given what's possible now?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that, I don't know if you've spent time with Jordan, who's in our band. I think that like I love the partnership that I have with him, in the context of our band. Of like, I think of him as someone that's constantly thinking about like new areas of growth or big new ideas of like what could be. I think like I'm very obsessed with like, once we have an idea, executing it to the best of an ability.
Yep.
To what I said before, like my focus kind of remains on making great music, putting on great shows, and like having all of that creatively, logistically, organizationally, and financially like exist at the highest level. It was Jordan's idea to make a Patreon. It was, like, I think I give him a lot of credit for being someone that's always thinking about like how to evolve it. Now I think like when things like this Broadway idea come up, like I'm like full force on like this is an awesome idea. Let's make it, let's do it, and let's make it the best that it can be. Let's make it work for us and our business, which wasn't easy to do. You know, like fitting the Lawrence band model into the Broadway band model, which is super rigid, is like super square peg round hole.
Yeah.
So like that took a lot.
And were you closely involved in structuring that deal or figuring out how to make that work?
I was involved at times in an arm's length way, and at times when it became necessary in a finger's length way. But like, yeah, certainly like top level discussions of like what this needed to look like. Yes. And then seeing where that came about, because it's just a very different world. And, you know, wanting to make it work for everybody. But, you know, I think that like, it's not like I'm like, what if Lawrence was an app? Like, you know, like I'm like so not that guy. But there like are always ideas that are fun, and like when they make sense, they make sense. And sometimes like they totally don't make sense. Like sometimes they just totally strike out. Like we had an idea, like, because we just like knew how to do the tech in a way that was better than how a lot of other people do it, of like making it that when you come to our show, you could buy a thing where you listen on headphones and you actually use an app to choose like what your mix is. Like you could just choose to listen to only the keyboard.
You guys made a splitter website. Was this?
Yeah. So me and Johnny built, it's kind of built off of a lot of that. I mean, bringing the splitter experience to the live experience.
Interesting.
Real-time headphones. You get that you're given the headphones when you're there. You download an app on your phone and you're able to real-time listen, and you could take your headphones off and listen to the show. But then if you wanted to, you could listen to only our guitarist background vocal or whatever. And like, we thought it was so cool, and we launched it on social media, and so many people commented like, this is so cool. And then we sold like 5 of them, and like 4 of them were to my dad. And like, and so like we try things all the time. We, a few years ago, we threw, this is an opposite example of, and like the Patreon one, like that's been really fun, but like it hasn't been gangbusters business
as a business thing.
But it's been really fun. And like, but like I could have seen that going either way. I could have seen it like so immediately having no one sign up to the point where we were like, okay, we're just actually not going to do this. Or I could see it having been like, oh my God, this is like a core part of our business. You know, and it's kind of very much somewhere between right now. And, you know,
what would you say that, do you think you guys experiment with new stuff like that? Like a lot? Like
it depends on what you define as new stuff. So like, you know, these acoustic-ish videos. Like, they are just something that we made 1 or 2 of because we thought that it would just be a really good music. Like we were like, this would be a great video. It wasn't like, I have an idea for a new venture for our business. It was just like, this is like a great like representation of our music. And it wasn't like, here's the 3-year plan for how these acoustic issues could become part of our strategy. But it was just like, we made these 2 videos that were great, and they like popped the fuck off. We thought that they were just going to be, well, no, at first we thought maybe they'll just be a video like any other video. Then they really popped off, and we thought, oh my God, these are great marketing for our music. And now it's become to the point where like these acoustic-ish videos are profitable in their own right. If you were to just solely look at the cost it takes to make them and the money that the acoustic-ish version,
just the video itself,
on YouTube and the Spotify release of the audio,
those 2 tracks,
those revenue streams like become a profitable thing for each individual video. Which was like completely, we thought like the best case scenario is that these are good marketing tools for the actual version
the money
of the song or whatever. Or the mark or the tour or whatever. So like, that's an example of like, now that's a core part of our business. I think if you were to ask people what they love about Lawrence and what stuff they expect from us, like that's up there. And like, that was just like a random thing. And like another idea is like, 3 years ago, we threw this festival in New York called Staycation, where we did 3 nights at a venue, and each night was like 2 other bands followed by Lawrence. And in the Lawrence 2-hour set, each night we did a completely unique set, no repeats. So like if you were to come to all 3 nights, you'd see 6 different openers plus 6 unique hours of Lawrence. And each night was super themed. different stage decorations, costumes. The set list was tailored to it, custom merch, custom cocktails at the bar. The whole venue, including the lobby, was dressed up to immerse you in the theme, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like this crazy idea we had that we thought would be fun. Yes, very borrowing from jam band culture and then bringing it into our sort of quirky brand of pop. And it was a huge success for us. Like, people loved it. Our fans still talk about it as one of the coolest things we've done. On the Patreon, we're constantly getting asked for more again. I don't know when this is coming out, but assuming that it's not in the next week, we are doing that festival again.
Sweet.
We're doing 3 nights in New York in October, 3 nights in LA in November. So it's going to be bigger and better. That's an example of both something that I want to plug right now, but also something that is like a fun idea that we had, that like, if that had kind of just been like mad the first time, and it's like, okay, we're not.
Yeah, no big deal.
Now we're making it like the centerpiece of our year, both from a ticketing standpoint and like a content standpoint. We're going to film the whole thing and blah, blah, blah.
All right. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you one final-ish question, which is like, you know, I think there's a lot of questions about what AI is going to mean for artists and musicians of all kinds. Now, you know, in some ways it's an incredible accelerant and a way of unleashing new kinds of creativity. On the other hand, it's, you know, there's a lot of slop and there's a lot of, you know, copyright issues and all kinds of other things. And do you know, how much is that in your consciousness and your thinking? Are you guys trying to stay away from it? Are you experimenting with it? Like, how are you approaching it right now?
Broadly, I'm not like loving it, but like, if I was to like have to put it into a couple words, I'm like, I'm not excited about it, but personally, but I do think, obviously, to the conversation we were having before about gatekeeping and barriers to entry, for certainly film, like, there's no question, like it or not, that it's going to allow people to make things with fewer other people needing to provide the capital and approval than it would have before.
Without a doubt. It's already starting to happen.
It's already starting to happen. Now, that's going to displace tons of people's jobs, obviously, in my opinion. And, you know, there's a lot that's not good about that, but that is certainly something that is, you know, I want people to be able to make their thing. Like, if there's one thing that I stand for, and if there's one thing that frustrates me, it's like people really believing in an idea that they have and not being able to make it. Like, so in that way, I should be a proponent of AI in some ways. For music, I think like so far I'm seeing it as like a way for people to cut corners or compensate for skills that they don't have, not resources they don't have.
Interesting.
Right? Like, so far I'm mostly seeing it as a way for people to like add an instrument to a song that they don't know how to play. And I guess you could say that's saving them money from hiring someone that knows how to play that instrument. But like, I don't know. I think so far I'm not loving what I'm seeing it do in music, but it definitely does interesting stuff. Like, there's no question. And I think it's like, it's going to be really good. Like, it's going to be really good at doing what it's doing.
There's no question.
There's no question
and it's
about
getting
that.
better every month.
Yeah. And it's already being used all the time. Like, we don't use, like, there's up to this point been no Lawrence songs out there in the world that have any AI in it. But like, I'll give you an example. I think that we've used AI in sessions twice. And here's the 2 use cases of it. One was we needed to present a demo of a song we were writing for a movie. That was a female vocalist, and Gracie wasn't in the studio with us that day.
Got it.
And so I just sang the vocal, and because it was for a client that isn't us, if it was us, it would just be like, imagine it's Gracie singing it.
Right.
But because you need to, you know, really present it to them in a way that's going to sound like it, we ran my voice through the AI thing, and then it was like a female vocal.
And you weren't cloning Gracie's voice. It was just a,
it was like
just a female voice. Just turn your voice into.
I don't even remember. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's like an example, and like someone could totally reasonably say, "Oh, you should have hired a female vocal," and frankly, we would have. And actually, later on that same project, it was last minute that Gracie wasn't going to be available. When we later knew for another session that Gracie wasn't going to be available, we did hire a female.
Okay.
The second use case was literally a couple days ago. We were again making a demo of something just for fun. And we realized that Jordan didn't have his saxophone because he had left it at the Broadway theater, but we wanted to put saxophone on it. So we just sang what the saxophone part would be.
Interesting. Yep.
And we were just interested. We spit it into the thing and it spit out what we sang as a saxophone part.
Yep.
We put it in. But like that would be in the final version. That's
Right,
just a
but that-
stopgap until Jordan then plays it on the saxophone.
And I think it's very, I think many of the AI use cases are going to be in this pre-production.
Yeah,
workflow
mocking
type
things
process.
up. That's sort of that's a long way of saying if I've used it for anything so far, it's been in helping to mock things up.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think it, on the one hand, there's a long journey, a long precedent of people using tech tools to facilitate things and frankly do things that they would have needed to hire people for.
Yep.
Like I use things that aren't AI all the time that 4 years ago would have needed to be a tape splicer engineer.
Sure.
And so they'd be like, why are you drawing the line at AI? Like,
Well, it's interesting that part of your response to that question is around the sort of labor jobs piece, which is certainly a very big piece of it. It's not the only piece. There's also kind of like a sense of authenticity, component.
Yeah, I don't even know how to. I think that like that honestly is a question better left up to consumers than to them.
Interesting.
It's like for me, I'm not interested in making Lawrence music that I didn't make.
Right.
But it's not up to me whether other people
Yeah,
are
like
open to hearing Lawrence music that I didn't make. Like, far be it from me. But yeah, no, I have no interest in making music that isn't human. And I don't think as a consumer I have interest in listening to music that isn't human. But like other people might, and I can't tell them how to feel.
Yep.
I do think the labor piece is something that's top of mind because I am an example. All of the other technological advances that have existed up to this point have displaced skills that aren't the skills I have. But this new wave of AI might be the first that would. And so I'm hyper aware of that and also hyper aware of not seeming like up on my high horse to complain about this when like, a studio drummer that you now don't need to hire because you can get studio drum loops would be like, why do you care all of a sudden now that the job
20 years ago that job went away?
Yeah,
or however.
exactly.
And then another, I think that all makes so much sense. And I think to your point about, like making it easier for people to create, I do think that's probably going to happen. And then we're also going to see people who see it as some sort of new instrument or new sort of medium.
I've seen that for sure. And it can be creative, but I think that the current balance of how often it's being used like that, or how often it's giving someone who doesn't have the budget to do something, the balance of those things to the balance of it being someone cutting corners and trying to make something the quickest way possible.
Yep.
And or trying to compensate for skills that they haven't properly developed. The balance is off for me in what I've observed in the music space. But I know people personally who I know have used AI to create music and have used it in ways that I've been really impressed by. If I'm being totally honest, I've seen that. And it's interesting. I have mixed feelings about it.
The other, I think there's maybe going to be like an AI barbell effect in the future where, of course there's going to be more AI music. That's just fact. And then what that means for a certain type of music, who knows? But I really believe that there's going to be an in-person premium, a reality premium, an authenticity premium. That's all about real video. It's about real digital. I think it's digital and physical.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be great for live music. And I think it's going to be great for real authentic human content.
I'm like, I think that's a good, I hope that that's true.
Me too.
I think that that's like, and this isn't me like nitpicking what you're saying, but I think I think there's like something a little funny about like people that are very like techno optimist about AI being like, don't worry, it'll be great for live music, but that's only until like somehow technology replaces live. It's like, I don't know. Like, I think we should preserve the things that are great about recorded music too, not throwing like the baby out with the bathwater as far as that's concerned. Like, but yes, I mean, certainly, the same way that the pandemic did, people wanted to go see live music, but
Well, and I guess my point is about live, but it's also more about human.
yeah,
Like, I think there's going to be a real human premium. The more fake shit there is in the world, the more, like, I think that will actually drive interest in real humans.
I hope
Whether that's
so.
live.
I hope so. I definitely, yeah. I mean, that's the question to me.
We'll
I think
see.
it will drive people towards live. The question of whether it actually drives people to want to consume human-made music or not, or whether the line between human-made music and not human-made music becomes blurry as hell.
Yep.
I just don't know, and I definitely think it's a whole new frontier with it. So
I,
I'm not sure.
I think that's actually it, is that, like, we're basically sitting on the precipice of a new frontier for
Yeah,
how to do the business of music. Like, AI is changing how to do this of lots of things, including music.
yeah,
And I think that's so, like, basically, like, your whole journey up until now, like, there's a whole nother journey now that's just starting that has this as a big force.
yeah.
Right?
I guess what I would say is like I've seen like whether it's I don't know if it's a tweet or someone said something or maybe AI said this, but like like I was hoping that AI would be like helping me do my dishes so that I could make my art, not helping me make my art so I had more time to do my dishes. Like, and I feel like there's a little bit of that with like how AI is like impacting the music industry. It's like, how about we let artists make their fucking music and let's let AI like route your tour.
There we
Or
go.
let's
Yeah.
let AI you know, make sure that your settlement is a correct reflection of the deal you're doing. Like, or any number of things. Like, like I don't know. I just feel like why are we in terms of the aspects of an artist's life? Why are we starting with such a heavy emphasis
Right.
on helping them do, frankly, the one thing that I think that like they really should be doing? I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that's a little bit silly.
That makes all the sense in the world to me. And I think what we're seeing in terms of having nothing to do with music, but just in terms of helping people do grunt work
Yeah,
better, like,
it's pretty good.
that is
right?
happening.
Yeah.
That is happening.
That
So,
hasn't really reached the music industry. Actually, I'd say the one way it's reached the music industry is I'm seeing like more often when I'm on Zoom calls. People have like their AI assistants that
Yep.
spit out like helpful notes that get sent to you.
that is just the tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg.
And-
And I feel like in other industries, they're so much further along in that, and there's ways that that could be helping.
And I think, like, maybe maybe an optimistic take on this story in this moment is that in a couple of years, there's going to be a story of the next Lawrence band that is as hands-on as you are, as real world with the music as you are, but has figured out AI to run the business side
Yeah.
of their thing
Totally.
in a way that's like captures all of your learnings and
Totally. And like,
that
I'm not opposed to using AI to help on that side. I'd still want to have a hold over it, but I'd be way more happy
Yep.
to do some of that. Like, and again, I'm not sure where I stand on the AI creation. Like maybe in 10 years, it'll feel like Photoshop, where like now I would never be like, don't use Photoshop. I mean, maybe I would say don't use Photoshop to like affect my face, but I would
No, I
say,
know what you mean. It's a tool. Yeah.
it's a tool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm unsure.
All right. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. Anything else that we didn't like? Final comment on the business of music through the eyes of Clyde Lawrence.
I mean, there's a million different directions that, that we could go, but it's been a really fun conversation. I think that this is a fun, unique conversation because you work in like the world of investing in the business side of venture capital and all of the above. And like, I always find it interesting talking to people in that world because they are always surprised to hear how similar the structure of the music industry is, but then also shocked to hear how crazily fucked it is. And like, that's probably why I'm here is because we had that conversation at an event where you were just talking about it and you were realizing how many parallels there are between our businesses, but how broken the music industry is. So I think like anyone that's interested in this, that's listening to this, like understand that like the music industry, yeah, in my opinion, like has the ability to take some lessons from other business worlds where the industry standards and the practices are like make a little more sense for the creators, or I guess you could say the founders.
Yep.
Um, and if you were to put it in business context, like I say this all the time, but like I think a lot of artists end up not only not being the CEOs of their own company, they end up not even working at their own company. They end up being the product. Like
Yeah.
that's
Interesting.
the equivalent that I give for people that work in other worlds. Is like so many artists find themselves being the product that a company that they don't even have a stake in is selling.
Yeah.
And then they get a royalty maybe or something. But like that's how a lot of artist business are structured, and they don't even know how to ask the right questions. They would be embarrassed and intimidated to ask the
Yep.
people that do.
Yep.
And that aspect of it is really backwards to me.
Yep.
Because I think that the artist should be being treated like maybe the CEOs of the company, or if they're not suited to that job, at least being treated like the founders of the
Yep.
company.
Yep.
And the chief creative officers of the company, or
Yep.
whatever
Yep.
terms you would put it in. And oftentimes I don't feel they're being given that respect from a business standpoint.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Clyde.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. That was so fun.